Healing is not linear. I've got alopecia again. I've started to lose hair here on my moustache, and it's been like that for a couple weeks. You'll probably noticed it in other videos, and this is the first time of having alopecia since I was between 9 and 13 years old. At that time I had big chunks of hair coming out of my head, and it was a time when lots of stuff was going on. It was just after some childhood sexual abuse. It was around the time of my parents' divorce. It was around the time of massive weight gain and lots of emotional issues I was going through and getting in trouble a lot at school. And funny enough, at 13 years old, that's when I stopped having that alopecia. And at the same time, it was when I started smoking and drinking alcohol. And it was as if when I had those substances, my body was finally able to relax and calm itself. And the alopecia, which is an autoimmune thing, stress, anxiety based, dissipated at 13 years old. And so 17 years of self-medication then took place, and it enabled my body to relax, to calm itself, to find its center. But obviously it has its downsides too, and became heavily addicted, experienced big mental health problems, and various other relational, emotional issues. So I'm now 31, and it's 18 years since this alopecia, since I last had this alopecia, and it's back. And I'm also 8 months sober. So clearly the substances have gone, the self-medication has gone, and my body's having to balance and manage and regulate itself. And it's so interesting that this alopecia would come up again, because it's like highlighting what was beneath all of those years of self-medication. The instability, the pain, the anguish, which all leads to this autoimmune problem where the body is fighting itself. So underneath the surface, it's clear that there was some stagnant issue there, and it's now resurfacing. And I don't know how long this will take. I don't know whether this will ever go. I don't know if it will get worse. It's just the start of it. But I'm hoping that there can be some healing here. I'm hoping that despite sobriety being one of the hardest things I've gone through, it encourages me to continue on the path, because I have to face all of these things. I have to dive down into my nervous system, into my cells, into my DNA, into my atoms, and do this work. If not, there will be some other covering, some other layer, and I'll stay stuck to some extent at that level. So at least I know where my body is at now, and that beyond all of these like far out and far reaching cycles, I'm facing what needs to be faced, what I didn't have the capacity to face at 13 years old. and covered in drink and drugs and alcohol. And so what? That is almost 2 decades later. I'm only 31. At least I have an opportunity to dive into these things. Not to be stuck, not to be trapped within these prisons, not to know that there's these things in my system that need work and need balancing and need love and need care, and never to approach those because of all the other layers. Thank God I finally have the opportunity to go there and do this work. And who knows what will happen next. When I was 16 years old, that's when I started getting anxiety attacks, panic attacks, hyperhidrosis, like complete sweating, like all over my body in any social situation. And I wander through the sobriety process, and if my system heals, catches up, balances that which it was dealing with from 13 years old, this resurfacing alopecia, I wonder if the anxiety, the panic, the hyperhidrosis will be next. I wonder if that will ever go, because that's something which has plagued me for so long and has impacted my life in so many ways. And I just want to mention too that for this past 10 years, even when going through the depths of addiction, even when going through the depths of mental health struggles and whatnot, I was still going through very deep, profound, powerful spiritual initiations, healing initiations, deep inner work, deep studies, hundreds of plant medicine ceremonies and treatments all around the world. And I hope I live a long life, because I just want to see how all these things are gonna interact, how these things relate to each other, how all of these things support each other, and what the kind of structure of them is, and how they've embedded themselves in my system. Because clearly I've got to do all of my work that I haven't done from when I was young, and yet there's so much I have done, and so much that I know hasn't been wasted and is lying in me somewhere. It may also be dormant, but at some point that is also going to come out. That will resurface. Those seeds will grow. Those seeds will sprout when all of the things which are stopping them from doing so are removed. So who knows, after all, what will happen, but this is the real process, the real story of being curious, documenting this journey, seeing how this unfolds. And healing clearly isn't linear, but there's no other way. I know I can't go back to where I was, what I was doing, and I want to face all of these things, because I know deep down, if I don't, I'll always feel like I haven't accomplished what I came here to accomplish. I'll always feel like there's hundreds, thousands, millions of ancestors behind me waiting for me to do this work, to liberate them, because they're also existing in my atoms, my cells, my nervous system, my eyes, my voice, my everything. So, healing isn't linear, but let's see how this unfolds.